Hey, you. Have you seen Across the Spider-Verse? You haven't? Well, then you can't listen to this episode. I mean, you can, but this is your only spoiler warning. So if you haven't seen Across the Spider-Verse, then you should. That's it. In theory, the whole multiverse could collapse.
No. I am your father.
And here we go.
That belongs in a museum.
Are you telling me that you built a time machine? Out of a DeLorean?
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
This is Sparta!
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
Dr. Grant, my dear Dr. Sattler, welcome to Jurassic Park.
Welcome back to another episode of Easily Entertained. Once again, I'm your host, Bryson Olson, and I'm joined by Cormick Bone, fellow entertainment enjoyer.
Absolutely. Always love to be here.
Heck yeah. And today, we are talking about the sequel to the movie we talked about last time.
Yeah.
Across the Spider-Verse. A new movie this year that just came out on the 2nd.
Yeah.
Perfection.
It's such a good film.
You know,
It's such a good film.
Amazing is the least you could say about it.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Anybody who says they want to see it, they're wrong. They need to see it.
They need to see. Yeah, it's not a want. It's a need.
Yeah.
And it's a need for several reasons. Because not only is the story fantastic, it is
Impeccable.
amazing. Leaves off on a bit of a cliffhanger, which we'll get into. But
Yep.
the animation, the music, everything. It is incredible what they did in this film.
It oozes with love for the craft, and so it makes you feel joy.
It really does.
No matter what.
Yeah.
Just no matter what, you know?
And it makes the first one, I feel like, even better.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because
That's how you do a sequel right.
Exactly. It just expands on the universe.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, these are two amazing movies that deserve all the recognition that they're getting.
When a sequel is bad, it's easy to compare it.
Yes.
To, compare the two films. But when it's good, it's hard.
Yeah.
And I would say near impossible. Like when we were talking about it, I bring up the example of Top Gun Maverick. That was a really good sequel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good because the first one exists. And the first one was made better because the second one exists.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you do a sequel. And this one, well, it's a sequel and a half. Tell you what,
True.
It does that way better. I mean, like Top Gun Maverick did it good. Don't get me wrong. I love that. But this did it way better.
And it's so hard to compare them, too.
Yeah.
Because the first one was already perfect in its own right.
Yeah.
Like, they nailed the comic book come-to-life style. It is insane. I remember when we came out of the theater, we were like, I don't even know if I can even say it's better than the first one, because the first one was already
so
amazing.
Great. Yeah.
I was like, even if we never got anything like this, it's perfect on its own.
Yep.
And so it's so hard to compare these two because they're both great. But we're just talking about Across the Spider-Verse today.
We'll just get into it.
Yeah. Excuse me. But so this one is a continuation of the multiversal kind of story.
Yeah. Sticking with Miles for a sec.
Exactly. But what's kind of nice is Gwen Stacy is a huge part of it.
Steps closer into the light, for sure.
Because before all the other Spider people were kind of like supporting characters. They're more side than the rest of them. But in this one, it feels like Gwen Stacy is equally a lead. Mm-hmm. They are definitely both on the same level. She gets probably just as much screen time as Miles does.
Yeah, and it's really nice to flesh out her story.
Because not everyone knows a ton about Gwen.
Nope.
At least the Spider-Gwen version of her.
Right.
And so it's definitely establishing it to kind of go somewhere, but we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
Like what we think is going to happen with Beyond the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, man.
The last one. Ooh.
Oh.
That's going to be great. Yeah. But yeah, so it's about Miles once again. This time they have a main villain, the Spot. Which you kind of think is a bit of a goofball at first. You're like, he's not going to be a serious threat.
Yeah. Yeah, and at first it's almost like he takes himself that way too, because he kind of knows like he just barely is getting onto the scene, and with like his story of how he gets it in his head that he and Miles are destined to be
arch nemesis.
Yeah,
because the Spot, I can't remember the character's actual name, but he brings the spider that bites Miles in the first movie. And so if you noticed in the first one, and they bring it back up in this one as well, the spider that bites Miles is not from this dimension. It glitches as if it's out of its normal dimension. And so the spider that bites Miles is not from his Earth. He's not exactly supposed to be this Spider-Man. It was supposed to bite someone else.
Yeah.
And then, so since the Spot had created him, when Miles blows up the particle collider
into the Spider-Verse.
into the Spider-Verse,
the first one,
he ends up creating the Spot because the Spot is in the room.
Yeah. According to the internet, Jonathan On is his name.
Jonathan On, okay.
Yeah.
But
he's one of the scientists that was working with Dr. Octavius from Miles' universe. And yeah, he was there, and it looked like from the little tidbits of animation, he was there to like recover the dead spider. We see that obviously we've seen it in the first movie that Miles kills the spider that bites him, and from the little tidbits of Spot's backstory when he's telling it, it looks like he was going back for that spider. I don't know why, but when he was there, the particle accelerator explodes, and then he becomes the Spot, and so he's got it in his head that their stories are intertwined. I mean, well, they are.
Yeah.
And so now it's in his head that they're gonna, be, attacking each other. It's the arch nemesis situation. And even in that first fight, he's like, "Oh, the crucible of our creation," and because they return to the
and Miles doesn't take him
site.
seriously at all.
At the
He's
beginning.
like, whatever. This is villain of the week.
Villain of the week.
Which kind of gets to Spot, and he's like, okay.
He said, "My feelings, bro."
He's like,
I'm gonna
villain
get
of the
you.
Villain of the week. Okay, we'll see about that.
Yeah.
And that kind of sparks the whole movie, is because Spot. So if you don't know about the Spot, because he is not a very well known
it's true.
villain, because even though he's kind of had a bit of a redemption in the comics, because he started off kind of goofy, like how this one is, and then he started off I think a bit more serious, and then they kind of got goofy with him, and now he's back to being serious.
Right.
So the Spot, it has portals all over his body that he can manipulate and travel. Not only in like physical space, he can travel interdimensionally.
Right. Because at first he's only doing it in physical space. That's all he's thought to do.
Yeah.
Until that fight that we talk about with him and Miles at the beginning. Then he kicks his own butt, quite literally kicks himself into himself, and then that's when he starts to figure out, oh, I can go into other places, not just other places, other dimensions with this. And there's many funny lines where he talks about his holes.
Yeah.
And how his holes
and everyone's
are
like,
the answer.
can you please stop talking about your holes? It's making everybody uncomfortable.
So funny.
It's hilarious. But so because he was taken as a joke, and he was like, okay, let's get serious now. I will really be a villain.
Yeah.
And so he creates a mini particle collider so he can start traveling to other universes to absorb the energy of all the other Alchemix particle colliders so that he can become extremely powerful.
Yeah.
And from what I was seeing, his name may change. So instead of the Spot, it's the Void, because with each particle accelerator, like he absorbs, he becomes more full of the Spot.
Gets darker.
And so
true to the form of the original film, with all the little tidbits of animation and music building with a character, the music for the Spot is awesome.
It's so menacing. It's
so
like,
good.
yeah, you're gonna die.
I mean, the music for everything in this film is huge. It's huge. But I really enjoyed how with the Spot, his theme builds as he builds, and it's
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But so because of that, it's going all interdimensionally. That attracts the work of the Spider Society, which is run by Spider-Man 2099.
Miguel.
And 2099 doesn't really like any of the original Spider-Men from Into the Spider-Verse because of that particle collider.
Yeah.
Because of it, they've been having some incursions throughout the multiverse, which are kind of causing the disruption of these things called canon events, which is the disruption of events that are supposed to happen in every spider story. So it's like them losing their powers and being like, I'm going to have to just quit.
Yeah.
Or having to have an uncle or a close loved one die. Yeah. Or in this one, it's a captain, like a police captain close to Spider-Man is meant to die. And in this case, it's Miles' dad who might die.
Because at the beginning, we're told that he's going to be promoted to captain.
Mm-hmm.
So
with that, Miles doesn't.
Yeah, he's like I don't want to do that.
He's like, excuse me?
Not about that, sir.
Excuse me? But so because of that, it kind of puts off some more events. Because Miles is like, no, I'm going to save my dad and still not break the world. Yeah. Because if you disrupt a canon event, your world essentially starts to disintegrate.
Right. That's what we've been told.
That's what we've been told.
By Miguel O'Hara. Spider-Man 2099.
Yeah, and he seems a little sketch.
Yeah, he's a little fishy. Mm-hmm. He's a little fishy.
And we see him earlier in the movie before Miles.
With the Gwen sequence.
With Gwen, because Gwen's off in her world, and they have a alternate dimension Vulture that's from like a Renaissance era. He's made of like
parchment.
Yeah, he's made of parchment. It's so cool.
It is really awesome.
And so she's trying to fight him, and then 2099 and Jessica Drew, who's another Spider-Woman, come in and stop him. And then
because he's an anomaly.
Mm-hmm. And in that point, Spider-Gwen reveals herself to her dad, and because she's accused of killing her best friend Peter Parker, who's the Lizard in her dimension, he kind of turns against her. So she leaves and goes with them to join the Spider Society.
Yep.
And so kind of how Miles gets involved is because she's coming to monitor the Spot because he's an interdimensional being.
Right, who's in Miles' universe.
Exactly. And then she is like, well, I'm going to visit Miles. And then this whole thing kind of goes off because he's like, well, now I want to join the Spider Society. But Miguel doesn't like him, so
it's true.
That's not going to happen.
And that's because, like you mentioned at the beginning of the episode, Miles' spider was somebody else's.
Mm-hmm.
And so we learned that Miguel doesn't like him because everywhere Miles goes, in Miguel's head at least, he is an anomaly.
Mm-hmm. He starts causing things.
Yeah.
Because there was a Spider-Man before Miles. The world already had a Spider-Man.
Yep.
And so this one came in that took a Spider-Man from another world and made it in this one. And so with that, we kind of get the whole cause of everything. There's an anomaly everywhere.
Yeah.
And so because of Miles not wanting to deal with the canon events, because he's like, I don't want my dad to die.
Yeah,
and
obviously.
In proper Spider-Man form, they're like, I don't want to live with this because this is an event that I can try and change. Because that's one of Spider-Man's powers is his will. Yep. He's like, I will save everybody.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
I love that moment of confrontation with Miles and Miguel because I really love the line where he's pointing it out. So we're just going to let this happen? And then he says things like, you realize how messed up that sounds.
Yeah.
Like, because Miles is genuinely just an amazing dude.
Yeah.
And that moment's huge because all of the other spider people who they've
already gone through it.
Yeah.
So their thought is like,
it's
well,
the
now
way it is.
We all kind of have to.
Yeah.
Because that's how it's been.
Right.
And so.
But not for Miles.
Yeah, not for Miles. But so that kind of causes everyone to go after him. And then,
right. Miguel sends him on Miles because now Miles is considered dangerous, and Miguel's been in charge of everybody, and so they listen to him.
And if enough canon events are disrupted in enough worlds, according
to Miguel,
to Miguel, in theory, the whole multiverse could collapse.
Right.
And so,
which is bad news.
Yeah. And so they want to stop him because they don't want too many of these canon events being interrupted.
Right.
But Miles, being the genius that he is, he leads everyone away, and then he gets sent back to a home world.
Yeah. That is the climax of the film.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And the home world is not his world.
Dun-dun.
Miles is from Earth 1610.
1610.
He goes to Earth 42, which is where the spider is from, because the machine that sends him back.
Yeah, the go home machine.
Scanned his DNA, and because the spider was from 42, that's the DNA it figured out.
Yep.
And so it sends him to an alternate world.
The world that doesn't have a Spider-Man.
Yep. And that's where he meets his alternate self, the Prowler.
Yeah.
And if you remember from the last episode, I talked about how Miles is a foil
Yeah.
to Aaron Davis, who is the Prowler in his universe.
His uncle.
Because they're so similar, they can go off just a little bit. If Miles makes just the right decisions, he becomes the Prowler as well.
It's like it's why airplane machines have to be so accurate, because if you're off by one angle at the start, by 1 degree at the start of your voyage, you're off by miles at the end of it. Like more than miles.
Miles Morales.
Oh man.
But it's incredible, and the detail that comes from it.
Yeah, because when you're watching the film, it's not apparent to you that he's sent home or sent to the wrong universe.
Yeah.
But when we watched it the second time, and there were little details. I mean, Bryson picked up on it the first time. He was a genius. But like when he gets scanned initially, when he's trying to go home, it'll say Earth 42, and we know that he's from 1610. I kind of missed that. It happens really quick. And then there's other little just details, like Bryson said, that are just beautiful. Like conventionally, that we've seen anyway, Miles's hoodie is red. When he's in this other universe, it's purple, which is the Prowler color, right? But it's a subtle little thing that you could totally overlook. I didn't even see it till the second time I went.
And his room, the walls are different. He has like one of the boxing bags on his wall.
His mom's eye color.
Yeah, his mom's eye colors are different. And then, of course, his Uncle Aaron is still alive.
Right, yeah, that's when you really get to know.
That's when he realizes, he's like, oh, no, I'm in the wrong universe.
Yeah.
And so it's amazing. And then that's pretty much where the movie ends.
Yep.
It's like, oh, you find out he's in the wrong universe, and he's met his alternate self.
And Gwen...
Oh, that's true.
Has rounded up the folks who support Miles. Really.
Gwen started to realize, they're like, no, Miguel is wrong.
Right. And through the movie, she kind of is having her doubts. And there's a moment when she's running along with what's her name with the motorcycle?
Jessica Drew,
the
other Spider-Woman.
And she says, "My gut says," and then she shuts her up. She's like, "Yeah, well, listen to your head then."
Yeah.
But like Gwen's kind of not about it, especially
listen to your spider sense, not your head.
Yeah, her and Hobie, which we haven't even really talked about, but what a man. I love Hobie. I've always loved Spider-Punk. He's always been one of my favorite as a guitar player, which is, super basic, but that's how it goes.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love that there's a mirror moment between Miles and Gwen, because Gwen goes to Miles's home, goes to Earth 1610 because she saw Miles knew Miles was trying to head home. And there's this mirror moment where they're both kind of realizing it at the same time. And we get both lines of they're like, he's in the wrong universe at the same time.
They're connected. Which
is indicative of a line from a very early part of the film where Miles says, we're the same. At least in the important ways.
Yeah.
And, man, it's those sort of bookends and those sort of little details that are just, they make a movie so much better. So much better.
They really do. And then, that ending is just to be continued.
It irked me. I was like,
and you're like, what? You kidding me? Which
it's a bittersweet. It's a bittersweet.
Yeah, because we walked out of the theater. We were kind of stunned. We were like,
absolutely dumbfounded.
You gotta be kidding me. But that kind of brings us to the next part of the episode, is talking about the sequel.
Yeah, I'm just so glad there's going to be more from them, to be honest.
Yeah, because they had planned it to be a two-parter.
Yeah.
From what I was reading, is it was actually supposed to be one movie, but because of the story they really wanted to tell, it would have been like a 5-hour-long movie.
Right.
And so...
Or just a really cruddy 3-hour long.
Exactly. The pacing would be way too fast.
Way terrible.
And so... they decided to make it into 2 parts, and so they worked on both of them around the same time. And I think they're still refining the last one, but they worked on most of it at the same time. And so Beyond the Spider-Verse will be the last one in the trilogy.
Yeah.
And that comes out March 29th, 2024. So just a little under a year, about
just
9
on the
months.
horizon.
Yeah.
There's
you
hope.
Could,
There's hope.
You could have a baby right now.
Right.
And
Conceive now. It'll be birthed.
Conceive now. You will have the baby when Beyond the Spider-Verse comes out.
Yeah.
Have it in the theater. No, I'm kidding.
It'd be
Don't do
even
that.
better if your first date was at Into the Spider-Verse. If you're listening to this and your significant other and you are married and your first date was Into the Spider-Verse, conceive now. I need this story to be real.
Bruh, it would actually be the ultimate spider love story. That'd be so sick.
would.
They'd have to name it like something Spider-Man
Right.
related. That would be hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we have to wait for the sequel, but they have set up quite a few things, which I'm excited for, because it means we'll have the final showdown with Spot, because he kind of cut out about halfway through the movie, which is understandable because he got enough power and he's like, see you back home. And then he goes back, he heads back to the universe and he'll be waiting for Miles. And so we kind of go through the rest of the movie without him, and it's mainly focused on the Spider Society.
Right.
And so with that, you'll have the Spot showdown, and they're going to need to rescue Miles because he doesn't have a watch like everyone else that lets them transport to all these different Earths. And so kind of how we mentioned before, Spider-Gwen had gotten all her like band of people from the original movie. So we will see them again in the next one, because
we see them at the very end of the film. Spider Noir and all of them.
Yeah, because Gwen was sent back by 2099
in the Go Home machine.
Yep, they took her watch away and they're like, you can't.
Yeah,
you're done. We don't trust you anymore because you're siding with Miles.
And
so Hobie gave her a watch.
The genius and the anarchist that he is,
because that's another secret detail. Not secret, like it's there, but it's not as noticeable that he's doing that throughout the film.
For the first watch.
Yeah, he's stealing pieces of tech throughout the Spider Society to make his own watch, and then he gives it to Gwen.
He's really the crux for starting this support of Miles, which I think is really, really, really cool because they just barely meet in this film.
I think what I think of Hobie, he's like a big brother to Miles.
Yeah.
Miles has always been an only child, and he's kind of always been on his own, and he's had help from friends here and there. And Hobie is very similar to Miles, and he's like, hey, you got to make your own choices. You can't just listen to what everyone else says.
He's the first person to ask Miles why he wants to join the Spider Society.
Exactly. He's meant to be the counter to all these authority figures when he goes to the Spider Society.
In true anarchist punk form.
Exactly. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's almost like they thought about what they were writing.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
And so you'll have all the originals. You'll have the anime. You'll have Penny Parker, the mech spider.
Yep.
You'll have Spider-Ham, Spider Noir.
Peter Parker.
And Peter B. Parker, as well as Hobie and Gwen.
Yep.
And they will all be going to help rescue Miles.
And Paviter.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about him.
Yep.
He's great.
Oh, he's the best.
Spider-Man India. He's awesome.
Yep.
He's played by, I don't know the actor's name, but he's Dopinder in Deadpool.
Right.
He's awesome. We absolutely love him, and he's so funny. In this one, so the actor helped write a lot of this
Karan Sony.
Okay.
I'm probably not pronouncing it right, but
yeah,
I'm pale, so
yeah, that's true. We're too white. But so he helped write some of the lines for Spider-Man India to make him feel more authentic, which is great.
Yep.
But so we'll see all them coming together. We'll probably see 2099 be a little bit more angry in the next one. And hopefully they side with Miles and be like, okay, we need to help stop this. Realize that Spot is more important to stop than everything else.
Yeah.
Because even if the canon event goes through, unless Spot is defeated, that will cause a much bigger issue.
Yeah.
Because go ahead.
To me, what I think is really happening here, okay, just based on how I analyze movies, specifically ones like this, there's no evidence that I was seeing that isn't through the scope of Miguel that says these anomalies are causing the collapse of a universe. We only are taking that on Miguel's word. The physical evidence that could be mistaken, in my opinion, mistaken for the collapse of a universe because a canon event is missed, because the first time we see a canon event missed is because of Miles. He saves the captain that's supposed to die in Paviter's universe. And Miles says it just once for the film. When Miguel is explaining what a canon event means and what it could do, he said that's Spot. It's not the universe collapsing, that's Spot.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what it looked like.
Yeah, because it's exactly like the portals that Spot is creating. And because he just got so much power, it wouldn't be surprising that that's the portal.
Right. So for me, what I think is really happening is Miguel 2099 is our overall antagonist. He is the main bad guy. And I think what's really going to end up happening is Miles is going to just talk down Spot. I really think that's what's going to happen. I think it's going to be super incredibly wholesome because the voice actor for him is a goofy little guy. It's Jason Schwartzman.
Okay.
He was in things like Old School. He's in Scott Pilgrim as the final Evil X. Anyway, it's I think there's a lot, and on very much on purpose in this film, to kind of red herring us into thinking Spot is the big bad. Because I kind of am feeding on that very initial thing where he kind of isn't. I mean, he's certainly, gone down a dark path, but it's really not his fault, and I don't think it's who he wants to be. It's just what he's had to become. Well, or what he feels like he's had to become. And I think Miles is going to be like, nah, you can do your own thing, to quote himself, right?
Yeah. I'm going to do my own thing.
I'm really fishy about Spider-Man 2099 because it's and the little clues that are dropped to like those who overanalyze a film like ourselves at our very first introduction to him. He's obviously doing cool Spider-Man stuff, but as soon as he's alone, when they're fighting that original Vulture, or like the ancient Vulture, anyway, as soon as he's alone, he like lets out a beast. I mean, so part of his story is that he's a vampire, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
no, you're right. It's you explain it. You know better.
Yeah. So how Spider-Man 2099 came to be is, so in his future, he's in the year 2099.
Right.
He worked at Alchemex, and to keep him working there, his boss got him addicted to a drug that only Alchemex could supply, and so it's how they kept their labor force. And to try and fix himself, he was going to use a strand of DNA that was before he was addicted, and he was going to like replicate it so that he would cure his addiction. But to sabotage him, they crossed it with a spider, and it gave him spider-like features. It did cure his addiction, but it turned him kind of into a monster. Right. He has fangs. He has spinnerets like a spider, so his webs are organic.
Oh, okay.
And then it also gives him fangs with like a venom as well to kind of paralyze his villains.
Right.
And so
as soon as he's alone, he lets that beast out.
Yeah. And so you see the fangs and everything.
In a silhouette. We don't actually ever like see it. Well, I mean, we'll see. It's very much proof, but you don't see it very, up front, which I think, is little details that are to say he is the hidden guy.
Yeah. And the fangs come out when he's mad.
Yep.
And he's like letting that beast out, because you see him again later in the film when Miles is about to go back to his universe, when he's in like the go back machine. It's kind of webbing him up because 2099 has his mask down and he's angry, and you can see his fangs as he's running to try and stop Miles.
Yep.
And so he's a bit of a secret villain.
Yeah. That's and because the little backstory that he gives, he tells. And I mean, like style of the rest of the film, everybody's telling their own backstory, and I fully trust them. Miguel's, I don't.
Yeah.
And I mean, certainly I believe parts of it.
Yeah.
But I think he's kind of played it to a certain frame so that he looks a lot better. And I mean, of course, we're only in his inner monologue, so that could be nothing. But It's what he's telling the audience.
Yeah.
And so that's what the writers are telling the audience. So it's what the writers want us to know at this point in time. I think that it could be more that Miguel might be the original cause of these anomalies, of the universe having this broken shift into everybody knowing each other, because he talks about how he was really, down on his luck in this life and whatnot, and because in 2099 they have the technology, I guess, to do multidimensional travel. So he's looking at a different version of himself where he's just a happy guy in a family. And he claims that version of himself dies. And so he decides to replace him, cover up that death and replace him and then be the family man. And then that's where he talks about the breaking a canon event causes a universe to collapse. I don't exactly trust that story. I mean, he doesn't let the go home machine scan him, so we don't know his original.
Yeah, if he's actually in the original world that he's supposed to be in.
Right, because he claims that the one that the Spider Society is in, his 29, he claims that that's his home universe. But again, I don't trust all of the things that he says. I do trust that he went into another universe, but I feel like, and this could be a totally pie-in-the-sky guess, but I'm going to say it now before, the next one's out. I think that he might be the cause of all these anomalies to begin with.
I could definitely see it. And I think kind of on that, because he possibly could have killed the other universe.
Right, yeah.
And
could have killed that
because
Miguel.
That is impeccable timing, because the way they show it in the film is he dies and immediately replaces him.
Yeah.
And so he had to have been, one, either monitoring it.
Right.
Or he did it himself. And otherwise, if he just went and replaced him. So how all the characters glitch and everything because they're in the wrong universe, it could have been the universe glitching because Miguel's watch allows him to be in another universe.
Yeah. The watches helped stop glitching.
It could have, maybe this is before they perfected everything and it reversed. And so although Miguel is fine, that world destroys itself because it's parallaxing.
Oh, yeah.
Because
I didn't even think that way.
Because it's these things aren't supposed to be here. We have to destroy the universe. It causes a parallax effect.
Yeah.
Where everything kind of
so instead of a
implodes
character
on itself.
Glitching,
the universe glitches and then it goes away.
That's dude, I think we're onto something with that one.
Creators,
just saying.
That'd be a cool way to do it.
Yeah.
But
leave a like if you think that's what's going to happen.
Leave a like on this episode if you think that the universe wants to destroy itself.
Or leave a like if you think we're buffoons.
Yeah. Either way. Leave a follow if you think we're buffoons.
There, yeah.
Or like this episode if you agree with our idea.
Yeah. Just give us attention, really.
Yeah. Please. We really need it. We have only each other. We need the friends.
It's true.
But yeah, so we'll kind of just have to wait for the next one.
Right.
Which kind of sucks, but it's not as long as we have to.
Right. I was expecting
so far,
2 years, 3 years. I'm glad that it's not.
If they have to postpone it, I will be sad, but understandable because clearly
they know what they're doing.
These movies have love and passion put into them.
If they need more time, I am more than happy to give it to them.
Which kind of comes into this one, the animation.
Oh, yes.
Because not only do these people know the source material inside and out, they love the characters, they love the medium.
They love the craft.
It's incredible. So in the first one, we kind of talked about it. It's still pretty 3D animated, and they have flash frames of hand-drawn full frames, or they have the halftones and the slashes and then the outlines of everything. They took that and put it to 100.
Yeah.
Every Spider-Man in this film is animated differently.
Yeah.
And it's incredible because there's hundreds of Spider-Men.
Yeah.
You have the Spectacular Spider-Man from the show. You have the Insomniac PS4 Spider-Man.
Yes, sir.
Not even just the suit. It is the model that is from it.
Yeah.
And the character, like the voice actor and everything. It is incredible. And you have Hobie Brown, who is animated as if he's newspaper cutouts. And he's animated completely different than everybody else.
A true spectacle.
Yeah.
Hobie's animation just blows me away.
Because if you know anything about animation or, well, filmmaking in general, most films are animated in 24 frames a second because it gives a cinematic look. Has a very natural motion blur to everything, and you can kind of adjust things from there. And so animation, typically computer animation, like we mostly see nowadays,
Oh, certainly.
is animated on ones. And because it's a computer creating everything, you basically do keyframes and the computer fills in the gaps. Miles, specifically, is animated on twos. So every other frame is where he's animated. So they have to kind of intentionally hold the frame for like a very small portion of a second, but you notice it.
Yeah.
And then Hobie is so cool because in pure anarchist fashion, he doesn't even do that. His main body animated on threes. So every third frame he changes. His outlines and different parts of his body are animated on fours. And so every fourth frame changes. And it is incredible.
It looks super disjointed in the best way. In the best way.
And something that I was noticing too is so occasionally Hobie goes completely grayscale. He goes black and white. And that is like a hint at newspapers running out of ink. Because sometimes they would have newspapers that are in color, but the last pages would be solely in black and white because they ran out of ink to print it on. So the detail that these creators put into the animation
and even
is
with
impeccable.
Even with that, it's not just random when he runs out of ink. It's indicative of what his character is feeling.
Exactly.
So we're going to go again this Tuesday. That's something I'm going to pay attention to, especially because now I know how Hobie's a real crux character. He's kind of an underdog, kind of a shadow player in this film. And I love every time I go back to seeing something, just seeing something new, trying to analyze something different because I'm, a nutcase. So that's what I'll be focusing on because it's really beautiful, like you say, and the details just. Oh.
He's great. And then another one of my favorites is Gwen's world because hers is animated as if it's watercolor paintings.
You almost get some it almost looks like claymation, like stop motion for a second.
Beautiful
You're like,
because each frame kind of changes because it's like they adjust everything so it looks like it's painted every frame.
Yeah.
And then like when emotional moments happen, it brightens all the colors.
Yeah, and they use a lot of the background changes to like abstract art and stuff
to just like focus on the characters.
Right.
It's like you don't need to look at the background. You just need to feel the emotions.
Yeah,
that these
the background
characters are
drives
feeling.
the character emotion.
Oh, it's
and
so pretty.
I noticed this too. Her hair color, like, it appears to change, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just the lighting. And I saw it in one of the interviews that Haley Steinfeld was in. She says that it was described to her as it's kind of like a mood ring.
Yeah.
Which I was like, that
which
makes
is
so much
the
sense now that
perfect
you say
description for it
Yeah.
because the world changes as those emotions and the story changes.
Her world is truly gorgeous.
It is
an absolutely joyful time to watch. I mean, not always happy things are happening there.
Yeah.
But it makes I cannot help but just feel joy and look at it and just feel so good.
Yeah, you feel so giddy looking at it because you're like, how did they do this? It's so pretty.
Yeah.
And it's just such a different kind of thing to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we're going to talk about animation, we have to talk about the kid.
Oh, dude.
So, in this movie, there's a short clip of when the Spot starts realizing he can travel to other dimensions.
Right. We get this and that. He jumps into Venom's world for a second.
He pops into a Lego Spider-Man world. And the Lego Spider-Man world is animated by a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Because the way he did it, if you want to pull up the kid, I can explain. So he animated one of the trailers.
Right. Reanimated it.
Yeah,
after.
so he reanimated one of the Across the Spider-Verse trailers after it had come out completely in Lego. He used, I believe Blender was the software they used, which I'm like, this means I have a chance with big studios because I'm learning Blender myself.
Right.
It's so cool. But so he animated in a Lego style the entire trailer, and that caught the attention of the creators because they had him animate like a maybe 10-second clip
Right.
of a Lego Spider-Man being like, I noticed
Right. We had an anomaly or something.
we have an anomaly. And then Spider-Man
I love
2099 is like, thank you. You're one of our best.
That had me dead. I was like, absolutely.
But so that's all animated by this 14-year-old kid. And he is incredible.
yeah, he's from Toronto, Canada. His name is apparently Mut Agana.
That's awesome. He's
I'm probably saying that wrong. I'm so sorry if I am.
yeah. But it's amazing. It's so impressive that it was this kid that was just like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And then he got the attention of the creators, and they were like,
We want him.
we want him. And so that was actually like a really late introduction to the film. Like that wasn't initially planned.
Right.
They may have been wanting to do a Lego Spider-Man bit, but they probably just hadn't thought about it too much. And then that bit came up and they added it to it. And I think that's incredible because that's such like a cool story. Because like you got to let everyone be a part of the Spider-Man story because that's the kind of character Spider-Man is. He's
Right.
for everybody.
Like we talked about last episode, anyone can be in the mask.
Exactly. And so, it's so cool that they mix all these animation styles. They give all these different creators the ability to add their own animation and style to this. It's so cool. And so that leads us into our question of the week.
Yes, sir.
Because we're doing it. And so be sure to answer this question of the week, whether on Instagram or on Spotify through just the little
Comments.
Q&A app, website, link, whatever it is. I need to check again.
Yeah.
But our question of the week is, what is your favorite animation style?
Right.
There's so many different styles. You have traditional animation, which is like normal hand-drawn, whether it's on paper or digitally.
Think Pinocchio.
Exactly. You have CG, which is the Pixar style. That's what I'm mainly going with to say. The Pixar style that we're typically used to, kind of stylized characters in a realistic setting. You have stylized CG, things like Spider-Verse or Puss in Boots, Arcane, those kind of things where they take the 3D element and kind of mix in a bit of 2D and use different elements. Claymation, stop motion animation, Lego animation, cut out like in things like South Park, flash animation like Rick and Morty or a lot of the modern TV shows.
Yep.
I'm curious, what is your favorite type of animation?
Yeah. It's a big question because animation is
Massive.
right, and
It's kind of hard to pick.
right, easily my favorite. Well, maybe not my favorite, but easily. No, I'm gonna say probably my favorite type of movie to watch. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still love me some live action, but just there's something about animation that just
True. And
I love it.
with animation, you can kind of break boundaries. You can't always do everything you can do in live action in animation in live action. You can do everything in live action in animation. You can't do the same.
Square's a rhombus, but
Vice
a rhombus
versa.
isn't a square.
Exactly.
But I have to stand by my Pixar. I love everything Pixar does. I just do. And their predecessors basically to what Spider-Verse is doing. They destroyed the animation unit, like
Animation industry.
industry. Thank you, industry.
you.
Destroyed the animation industry. Totally rewrote the whole book. And I love those Pixar movies way too much. Not to say it's probably my favorite. So I just, and there's not to say that I don't love what Spider-Verse is doing, because I do. Every second of it. Absolutely gorgeous. I love Pixar. I love it.
It's true. You're the Pixar boy.
I am. I will stand behind Pixar in any conversation.
Elemental, we'll definitely be talking about that one. When it comes out. It's going to be great. Yeah, that's a good one. Pixar style, it's good.
About
and
it.
they broke the bounds.
Yeah.
When it came out. Because everyone jumped on the train. They were like, we got to do this.
3D animation time.
This is amazing. Yeah. I really like stylized animation. I think it's awesome. We've been watching Arcane the day we're recording this.
Yep.
Because show's impeccable.
It's great. It really is. I kind of slept on it.
And I kind of love that things are kind of going back to roots with stylized animation.
Yeah.
But also, probably equally as much as I like stylized CG animation, I love stop motion.
It's so fun.
It's so impressive. I love
Yeah.
how it's like you can almost kind of see every frame that's being manually created. It's so cool. And my favorite probably stop motion is Coraline.
Yeah.
That movie is just impeccable because I love the mystery horror type genre, and I think that combines both animation and that genre. I think it's perfect.
It's a great synergism.
It really is. And I think it's kind of a good halfway point between most animation and live action because it's all physical.
True.
You have to animate everything on a physical space.
It's true. That's a good point.
And yeah.
I love me some stop. I grew up with Shaun the Sheep and Wallace and Gromit. So.
Yeah, well, we did too. I actually hated Wallace and Gromit as a kid. Not like
Jeez.
not like hate as in I thought it was bad.
Right.
I hated it as in I thought it was terrifying.
Oh.
I think what was it? I think we were at my grandparents' house one time. I have two instances where stop motion actually scared the crap out of me as a kid, and then I
It can
grew.
be unsettling.
Yeah.
It's a little uncanny valley.
Yeah, it scared the crap out of me, and now that trauma has turned into love.
Right. Yeah.
But so
Casually, naturally.
So one time I think they were playing Wallace and Gromit. I think the Were Sheep, I think is the movie that was playing.
Curse of the Were Rabbit.
That's it. Were Sheep, bruh.
I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
the Were Rabbit. And I think part of that scared the crap out of me.
It's kind of a spooky one, especially
And
for a
then-
kid.
And then the stop motion Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Oh yeah.
The Abominable Snowman,
Snowman, yeah.
would scare the crap out of me as a kid.
He's
and
a monster.
I'm sure my family, if they've seen Across the Spider-Verse, because I've told you guys to go see it, you've seen my post, go see it.
So good.
They will probably laugh so hard at this part because it scared the crap out of me because I think we were watching it at my grandparents again, and I just start crying.
Oh.
And they were like, "What's wrong?" And they realized
Scary.
later it was the Abominable Snowman in that movie, and which valid because it was freaking terrifying.
Yeah, he's a spooky guy.
Yeah.
He's intentionally made scary.
Yeah, and now I've kind of grown to just love stop motion as a whole.
It's awesome. It really is.
And I think just animation in general is a beautiful medium, and I am so excited with Spider-Verse kind of changing things and seeing that change throughout the industry.
Yeah, like we talked about last episode.
And I'm so excited to see where it goes. So yeah, question of the week, answer either here on Spotify or comments on YouTube, Instagram, wherever.
Yeah.
Wherever you want to let us know. What is your favorite type of animation? And with that, that is this episode. Thank you for listening. Us talk with you about Across the Spider-Verse. Yeah, it's great. If you haven't seen it, I don't know why you went this far in the episode.
You be sleeping.
Yeah, you have been spoiled for sure. I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
But there is a spoiler warning at the beginning. It's your own fault.
True.
So, if you haven't seen it, go see it. You should. It's perfect. If you have seen it, see it again because we're definitely going to.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, until next time, peace.
You have been entertained.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Easily Entertained. If you enjoyed, be sure to tune back in Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, where we're available on all podcast platforms. And if you want all the latest updates on all things entertainment, check us out on social media for Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. And until next time, this is Easily Entertained.